Women have betrayed me, and now I don't need them anymore. My name is Larry. At 17, I was a walking paradox, a lanky kid with a face that turned heads and a mind that wanted nothing more than to bury itself in books. I was in my first year at Stanford, studying computer science, surrounded by the hum of ambition and the scent of eucalyptus trees that lined the campus. The California sun bronzed my skin, and my dark hair fell in waves that I never bothered to tame. Girls noticed. They noticed too much. It started innocently enough, smiles in lecture halls, lingering glances in the library, notes slipped under my dorm door. "You've got those cheekbones," one girl giggled during a study group, her fingers brushing my arm. I'd blush, mumble something incoherent, and retreat. Even the professors weren't immune. Dr. Helen Carter, a sharp-witted literature professor in her 40s, once stopped me after class to say, "Larry, you have a presence that lights up a room." Her eyes lingered too long, her smile too warm. It made my skin crawl, not because I didn't like the attention, but because I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't raised to be a heartthrob. I was raised to be invisible, the son of a single father who worked nights at a factory and taught me to keep my head down. Then came Emma. She was a sophomore, a psychology major with auburn hair and a laugh that cut through the noise of crowded frat parties. We met at one of those parties, where I was nursing a soda and pretending to care about the conversation. She sidled up, her green eyes catching the neon lights. "You look like you're hiding from the world," she said, her voice teasing but kind. I wasn't hiding, I told her, just observing. She laughed, and for the first time, I felt seen, not for my face, but for me. We dated for 6 months. I thought I was in love. Emma was my first everything. First kiss, first late night talk about dreams, first time I let someone in. I'd sneak her into my dorm, her body warm against mine as we whispered about the future under a cheap blanket. She said she loved my intensity, the way I'd talk about coding like it was poetry. I believed her. Until I didn't. It was a Friday night when I caught her. I'd gone to her apartment unannounced, a stupid romantic gesture with a bouquet of daisies I'd scrounged up from a street vendor. The door was ajar, and there she was, tangled on the couch with her ex, a beefy guy named Jake who played lacrosse and had a neck thicker than my thigh. The daisies hit the floor. My chest tightened, not with sadness but with a rage I didn't know I had. "Larry, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, but her flushed cheeks and his smug grin told the truth. Jake stood, cracking his knuckles. "You got a problem, pretty boy," he said. I didn't want to fight. I'd been training in karate since I was 12, a habit my dad insisted on to keep me disciplined. But I hated violence. It felt like a betrayal of the control I prided myself on. Jake didn't care. He swung, a clumsy haymaker I dodged easily. I tried to talk him down, but he lunged again, and instinct took over. A quick sidestep, a precise strike to his solar plexus, and he was on the floor, gasping. Emma screamed, "Stop it, Larry," like I was the villain. I left, but not before Jake wheezed, "I'll call my boys." "You're done, man." I didn't look back. As I walked across campus, the night air sharp against my skin, I made a vow. I needed a normal girl, someone who wouldn't play games. Someone who'd see me, not just the face in the mirror. By 20, I thought I'd found her. Angela was different, or so I believed. She was a business major, all sharp edges and ambition, with a smile that could close deals. We met in a startup incubator program, where I was pitching a coding app I'd built in my dorm. She was drawn to my drive, or so she said, and I was drawn to her confidence. We'd spend nights in San Francisco's dive bars, her hand on my thigh as we talked about building an empire together. I proposed after 8 months, a cheap ring burning a hole in my pocket. She said yes, and I thought I'd cracked the code to happiness. Then I got sick. It started with fatigue, then fevers that wouldn't break. The diagnosis came like a punch: lymphoma, stage 3. The hospital became my second home: sterile rooms, the beep of monitors, the metallic taste of chemo in my mouth. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd see 21. Angela was there at first, all sympathetic eyes and promises to stay by my side. But as weeks turned to months, her visits dwindled. She'd text excuses: work, classes, life. I overheard her once, on the phone outside my room, laughing about a party she'd gone to while I was hooked 2 and 4. The final blow came when I was discharged, weak but alive. Angela was distant, her eyes on her phone more than me. I confronted her, and she didn't even bother to lie. "Larry, I need someone who can keep up," she said, her voice cold. "You're broken now." Broken. The word lodged in my chest like a shard of glass. Then came the thug. His name was Vince, a lowlife she'd met through some shady business deal. He showed up at my apartment one night, a hulking figure with a scar across his cheek. "Angela says you're causing trouble," he growled, shoving me against the wall. I was still frail, my body a shadow of itself, but I wasn't scared. I'd faced death. A wannabe gangster didn't faze me. I talked him down, my voice steady, and he left, muttering threats. The next day, I ended it with Angela. She didn't cry. She just shrugged and walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement like a countdown. That was the moment I swore off women. They weren't worth the pain, the lies, the betrayal. I was 20, barely surviving, and done with the fantasy of love. The years that followed were a rebirth, though not the kind you'd see in a Hollywood montage. I threw myself into my work, building that coding app into a real business. By 23, I'd launched CodesApp, a platform that streamlined app development for small businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by coffee and a stubborn need to prove I didn't need anyone. My apartment in Oakland was a mess of monitors and takeout boxes, but the numbers in my bank account grew. I hired a small team, mostly guys like me, hungry, focused, uninterested in drama. We'd code through the night. The hum of servers, our only soundtrack. I started traveling too. Not the Instagram kind with posed selfies, but raw, solitary trips to places that forced me to think. In Bangkok, I wandered through night markets, the air thick with lemongrass and sweat, haggling with vendors who didn't care about my past. In Iceland, I stood under the northern lights, their eerie glow making me feel small but alive. Those moments, alone with the world, were my therapy. I didn't need a woman's touch to feel whole. The wind on my face was enough. But the past has a way of creeping back. At 25, I ran into Emma at a tech conference in San Francisco. She was different, thinner, her eyes tired, working a booth for some startup that was clearly failing. She saw me, and her face lit up like old times. "Larry, you look, wow," she said, her voice a mix of nostalgia and hunger. I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, just a vague pity. She tried to flirt, her hand grazing my arm, but I stepped back. "Take care, Emma," I said, and walked away. That night, I sat in my hotel room, the city skyline glittering below, and realized I'd outgrown her. I'd outgrown all of them. The underworld found me again at 27. My business was thriving, and with success came predators. A guy named Marco, a slick-talking investor with ties to some East Bay gang, approached me about partnering. His smile was all teeth, his handshake too tight. I declined, politely at first, but Marco didn't like no. One night, two of his goons cornered me in a parking garage, their breath reeking of cheap whiskey. "You think you're untouchable, pretty boy?" One sneered, echoing Jake from years ago. I didn't fight this time, just stared them down, my karate training a quiet thread in my stance. They backed off, but not before smashing my car's windshield. I didn't call the cops. Instead, I hired a private investigator, dug up dirt on Marco, and leaked it to his rivals. He disappeared from my life, and I learned a lesson. Power isn't just money, it's leverage. By 30, I was a different man. CodesApp was valued at $50 million, and I diversified into real estate, buying up small properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods. I mentored younger guys, mostly coders and entrepreneurs, teaching them what I'd learned the hard way. Trust yourself, not others. One kid, a 19-year-old named Ethan, reminded me of myself, too eager, too open. I took him under my wing, showing him how to spot red flags in business and in people. "Women will tell you they love you," I told him over beers one night. "But watch their actions, not their words." He nodded, wide-eyed, and I felt a strange pride, like I was saving a piece of my younger self. There were temptations, of course. A woman named Claire, a venture capitalist with legs that went on forever, tried to pull me into her orbit. We met at a gala, her dress clinging to her curves, her perfume a mix of jasmine and ambition. She leaned close, her breath warm against my ear as she whispered about mutual opportunities. My body responded. How could it not? But my mind stayed sharp. I saw the calculation in her eyes, the same hunger I'd seen in Angela. I smiled, declined her offer, and left the gala alone. The city lights reflected off the bay as I drove home, and I felt free. I filled my life with other passions. I trained harder in karate, earning my third-degree black belt, the dojo a sanctuary of sweat and focus. I took up rock climbing, scaling cliffs in Yosemite, the burn in my muscles a reminder I was alive.